Hello, and welcome to the Online Marketing Institute's presentation on social media going beyond friends and followers. My name is John Thifault. I'm the Vice President for Search Engine and Social Media Marketing with Beasley Direct Marketing. Today we'll be covering a number of different topics. We'll start off with a review of social media and the scope in society. We'll compare it to traditional industrial media. We'll talk about social media's influence on search engine rankings and how they live in a symbiotic relationship. We also understand how to track social media and benchmark for success within your organization. We'll look at best practices and policies for setting up social media marketing within organizations and companies. And throughout, we'll look at the changes that social media has brought about in how you interact with your customers and what their preferences for engagement with your brand or company are. I don't want to turn this presentation into a commercial for Beasley Direct Marketing. I will just say that we do a great job for our clients delivering on their online marketing goals, on budget and on time. And generally we have a lot of very happy, successful clients. A little bit about myself. I've been doing search engine and social media marketing for the last 10 years, and before that I had been doing both online and traditional marketing with both B2B and B2C customers. I'm not going to read the slide to you verbatim, but I have learned over the last 10 years that search engine and social media marketing are great vehicles to really reach out to your customers, engage them in new and unique ways that did not exist before search engine and social media marketing came about, and to have a conversation with them instead of just broadcasting to them. Let's take an opportunity to define how social media is different from traditional industrial media. Social media is really a group of internet-based applications that allow the end user to create and exchange user-generated content. Now, there are 6 different types of social media right now. Collaborative projects such as a Wikipedia, blogs and microblogs, Twitter, and your favorite blog out there. Content communities such as a YouTube or Vimeo. Social networking sites, Facebook, LinkedIn. Then virtual game worlds and virtual social worlds. World of Warcraft, Second Life are to name a few. Now, we're not going to touch too much on the virtual game and social worlds, but they do deserve mentioning here. In social media, the end user as well as the publisher are actually creating the value. It's a collaborative exercise. It's very dynamic. It can have the potential for much greater reach, but it's not guaranteed. With traditional media, you go out and you do an ad buy. You have a exact reach that you know about beforehand. You do a Super Bowl commercial. You do a online banner or box buy, and this has a very concrete reach. Social media is much more fluid, but the reach can be much greater. And part of the reason it can be greater is when you're participating in social media correctly, you build up a sense of trust and you build up a sense of ownership. So people are really willing to go ahead and take your message, your brand identity, and share it out, almost becoming part of theirs. The accessibility for social media is fairly unlimited. Anybody who has a computer and has the interest in what you're talking about generally finds it accessible. Industrial media tends to limit accessibility by both cost and ownership. Social media can deal with the accessibility in a very low cost and decentralized fashion. Industrial media requires a specialized team to create it, i.e. graphic artists, copywriters, designers, advertising guys like myself. Social media is much more of a conversation where it is being created with some expertise on the publisher side, but a lot of it, the creation is coming about as a result of the conversation you are having with your customers and with people who are interested in what you're talking about. Industrial media also tends to have a greater lag time, and this gets back to the specialized team it takes to produce it, where social media can be much more immediate and impactful. Great example of this is last year when they captured Osama bin Laden. There was a guy who was live tweeting it, and he was sitting there working at his laptop at home in the Pakistani city where everything went down, and he started complaining about helicopters and explosions. Well, it turned out he was live tweeting it. Within 2 days, this guy who was working out of his office was on every major news network out there. Every major print publication had picked up his Twitter feed about the taking down of Osama bin Laden. Granted, this is an extreme example, but you can see the very immediate, right away nature of the social media and as it was happening. Here are some leading social media sites. If you notice, there are some listed here that are offshore. Qzone Renren in China, Badu for teens in the UK, Orkut in Brazil, which there isn't a US version of Orkut, but it's not nearly as successful as the Brazilian version. There are the traditional players, there are location-based social media sites, lots and lots of different ones here. I'm not going to detail each and every one of them. Most people listening to this, I hope, have a fairly good grasp of what most of these sites are about. Now, what is social media not going to do for you? It's not going to take over professional website development. It's not going to replace email. It's not going to cure cancer. When you're working to develop a website, it is such a complex job nowadays that having a team of professionals who can set up the website, police the day-to-day operations of it, and really make sure that all the I's are crossed and the I's are dotted and T's are crossed is vital to having an effective website out there. That doesn't mean you can't have social media as part of your website, but it is not going to be the entire website. A lot of people are saying social media is going to replace email. That's not going to happen. Email is too highly directed to individuals, where social media tends to have a bit more of a broad reach broadcast component to it. And email is part and parcel of the day-to-day life of online and offline business. It has become part of our society, and it is not going to go away soon. In addition to the marketing aspects of it, it is just a great communication channel. Social media has changed the basic way we communicate with our customers. We listen to them instead of broadcast to them. We talk with instead of talking at them. This is just a vital change in the way marketing and outbound communications from your company have changed since social media has become available. I've given you a couple of social media properties here and the registered users just to give you an idea of reach. Of course, we have Facebook, the 800-pound gorilla in the market with 750 million registered users. Twitter, Qzone, Renren, LinkedIn, Google Plus, fairly new on the scene, but already 20 million users. Foursquare, location-based social media. This just kind of gives you an idea of the reach. Some statistics that are really relevant in 2011. Social media is great for reaching a younger demographic, and over 50% of the world's population is now under 30. Social media has created so many basic changes in the way people interact. 1 in 5 couples have met online. Let's talk about how social media ties into search engines and how it has really affected the way people find new things and new ideas when they're trying to navigate their way around the web. People in the last 10 years have started to use search engines as their default navigation to get around the internet. Google, Bing, Yahoo, Ask, all the search engines are now really the signpost to find your way around the web. When people look for new things, they're going to Google first, they're going to Bing first, and they're trying to find the shortest, quickest, best answer for what they're looking for on the web. Now, the search engines want to give this to the people. They believe that the better answers they give to their users, the more the users are going to trust them, and the more the users will use them. And this translates into more page views, more opportunities to put ads in front of the users, etc., etc. The search engines have really baked in social media and the signals it send about websites and content into their ranking algorithms. And this is because social media has become a huge part of every online day. People are influenced by social media without really even knowing about it sometimes. The signals Google, Bing, and Yahoo are all looking at fall into two broad categories: the volume and timeliness of the conversation going on, and then the social reputation and the influence of the people holding the conversation. Now, there's a good bit of overlap between these two categories, but it's vital to understand these as really the drivers behind how a search engine looks at social media content. Let's talk about some of the specific signals social media sends to a search engine and how we watch them. Now, these signals are vital even if you're not really focused on the search engine marketing end of the conversation, even if you're just trying to have a good, strong conversation and social media presence. So they are something you need to be aware of. Share of voice, the sentiment of the conversation, good, bad, negative, positive, neutral, the overall awareness of people about the conversation. How many lists is your Twitter feed on, and how many Facebook pages are you being referenced on? People's engagement in the conversation. How active are they? Are they just reading and going on? Are they responding? Are they having a long back and forth? What is the influence on the broader social media market of the people participating in the conversation? Are they leaders or followers? Are they somebody people will read and retweet right away, or post on their Facebook wall, or share on their LinkedIn page? And then, of course, there's the volume of the conversation. And volume is volume over time. So something that's very active, very quick, gets a huge spike in volume, can have a bigger impact than something that has a long-term conversation. It really depends on the subject. Facebook posting, shares, and likes are one of the places the search engine looks for the information above. Tweets, retweets, adding to the list, Yelp reviews, Google Pluses, Foursquare updates, YouTube votes, etc. Each social media channel has a little different set of signals, but they all are still falling into the signals to watch category above. Now, in addition to the signals, we also have some measurements that have to do with who actually came up with the conversation and is participating in the conversation online. There is the author authority. How influential is that author? And it could be an individual tweeter, Facebook page, LinkedIn profile, Yelp reviewer, etc. And then there's domain authority. How influential is the author's domain in the bigger world? Generally applies to the individual, but if you have a number of individuals, the domain authority is cumulative. Charlene Lee, who used to be an analyst with Forrester Research and wrote a book called Groundswell, created something called the Social Technographics Ladder. And this is just a really good way of looking at social media participants and how they rank within the larger social media communities. She starts off with creators, then she goes to critics, collectors, joiners, spectators, and inactives. Now your creators, they're the very rarefied. They drive a huge percentage of the conversations out there, but they are roughly only 1 to 2% of the total population on social media right now. Critics are people who will take the creator's content, add their own content to it, spin it, comment on it, and really keep the conversation going. So if you can target the critics and the creators effectively with your messages and positioning and have a conversation to them, listen to what's important to them, you're going to have a huge impact on the social media conversations going on out there. Now collectors, and I fall firmly in the collectors bucket here, are a very good secondary target for your efforts. Collectors will take conversations from the critics and the creators and they'll pass them on with very little color or addition, but they serve a vital purpose in making sure the conversation keeps on going. Now we also have joiners and spectators. This is about 40% of the online population for social media. You don't want to ignore them. They're not going to be the ones you target, but you do need to pay attention to them and try to get a feel for them. They're the ones who are ultimately going to use your product. And then there are the inactives, people who heard, oh yeah, Facebook is really great. I need to sign up for an account. And that was the last thing they did. Let's talk about how you can take advantage of the social media signals and their influence on search to help get your message, content, and information out to a greater audience. There are 3 things you really need to know to be successful to do this. Who's talking about your product, the marketplace, and the problems that your product offers a solution to. And this again is identifying your creators and your critics and where they are having their conversations. How are they talking about it? Which channels are using? What is their language? What is their tone of voice? And it's not just keywords in a traditional search engine sense, but it's the tone of the voice of the conversation, the sentiment that's around the conversation. If it's a negative sentiment, this gives you an opportunity to respond to it. And if it's a positive sentiment, this gives you an opportunity to maybe help it grow a little bit. One of the first things I learned way back in the day when I came out of college and got a job in sales for a book publisher was if somebody cares enough to start to say negative things about your sales pitch, you have a great opportunity to engage them and eventually close their sale because they care enough, they're engaged, there's a good might be able to offer them a solution and get the sale. Somebody just says no, next item, then you really are in a much harder place. You also want to understand what's important to the creators and the critics out there. You want to give them straight facts. You want to make them feel as if they're the center of attention, boost their ego a little. And you want to give them ways to solve problems for others. But you need to also understand that most of these creators and critics are fairly savvy people and they can see a pitch a mile away, so don't try to disguise it. Listen to them first, talk to them first, ask questions, understand what they're looking for, offer them pieces of information that have value that do not have anything to do with your company, but might be something bigger in the marketplace. Give them a reason to trust you. Give them a reason to believe what you're giving them is of value and will be in the future. There are some tools out there, and I'm not going to dig into these too deeply. They all have a lot of overlap, but They are really good at helping you to find the creators and critics out there and monitor their conversations, take action on them, and really move forward. The tools we've used at Beasley are Radiant 6 and Lithium. Those are both enterprise agency level tools that are great and integrate very well with CRM systems. Social Mention and Clout are kind of second tier tools, but they can give you some really good information and they are growing over time. They're just not quite as robust. Google and Brandwatch are great tools to just understand. You can look at things like Google Trends and Google News and really get a feel for who's talking about what on the web. Now remember, one of the first steps you want to really take when doing a social media campaign and integration across your company is to listen to the language. And the tools we mentioned on the last slide are very useful in this regard, but they'll start to give you some phrases, some keywords that are out there and being used. How can you tell which one of these phrases, which keyword is going to be the most effective, which one is generating the most searches on Google? The tools listed on this slide, Word Tracker, Keyword Discovery, the AdWords Keyword Tool, SEO Moz, Spy, all will help you with this, and they'll give you an idea of the volume of the conversations going on around the web, how many other competing sites are on the web that may not be involved in social media, and they might give you some ideas of new places to go to look for new blogs, new sites, postings, etc. So you've come up with your base set of language you want to use in the social media conversation, and that's good. But now you need to think about, how can I make this language interesting, exciting, intriguing? How can I make it so people want to pay attention to what I'm saying instead of just kind of writing along with it? Some things to think about here are short, snappy headlines that promise info, but they don't tell the whole story. Top 5 ways to drive social traffic. 8 most embarrassing moments in baseball. These keywords and key phrases you've identified, use them. Get them in the headlines, get them in the body text. And always include a link to your site, your blog, product profile in any and all postings. Sometimes you may not be linking to your specific site, you may be linking to a reference site, a third-party site out there that demonstrates you know what you're talking about and adds additional information that helps the conversation to continue. If you're always talking about yourself, people are going to ignore you. But if you're talking about the world in general, people are going to pay more attention to you. So don't just be a mono-focused, I'm only going to post about my company site. Post about the marketplace. Make it interesting. Don't be just about your company. If you have found critics and creators, try to be the first one to capture their latest post and share it, retweet it, post it to your LinkedIn. Over time, they're going to notice you and start to do the same for your content and your postings. Here are some examples of intriguing headlines. These two are from Twitter, and they're from a guy named Brett Tabke, who is one of the founders of Webmaster World and also a conference that takes place 2 or 3 times a year called PubCon. And as you can see, 14 awesome features in the new Google Analytics version 5. That's very informative. It gives it a little spin, awesome features. He has some very good specific implementing HTML5 drag and drop new premium tutorial. Then we have something from Mark. Do shared links last longer on Twitter or Facebook? Intriguing, exciting, interesting. They make you want to click. Guy Kawasaki, the fastest growing jobs of the next decade. Lee Auden, content marketing opportunity at SES San Francisco, rated in the top 3 of the conference. You can see these are all intriguing and they make you want to learn more. Let's talk about some social media metrics that transcend individual sites and channels. Now, these metrics were developed by Avanish Kushnek, who is the digital evangelist for Google Web Analytics and also the co-founder of a great company called Market Motive. He's an all-around thought leader in the web analytics space. He's developed a cross-channel model for tracking the effectiveness of social media. It starts off with the conversation, the amplification of the conversation, the applause for the conversation, and then last but not least, the economic value of the conversation. Your conversation rate is the number of audience comments or replies per post. And this tells you what your friends and followers are saying about you and your product. It allows you to have a meaningful conversation with your audience. And if you say something provocative, you can very easily use the conversation rate to understand how it's getting out there in the wider world, and you can see how it affects your brand, product, or service. And we're talking retweets, we're talking replies to blogs. All this falls into the conversation rate number. Now, your amplification rate is fairly similar to this. It has different names on different social networks. Twitter is the number of retweets per tweet, Facebook number of shares per post, YouTube number of the share of clicks per post or video. Again, it varies from network to network. Measure the pieces of your content that cause the most amplification conversation, and it allows you to really have your social contributions spread to the second and third and even fourth level networks you're participating in. Try to tie in times and geolocations where appropriate. The more you do this, the more value you will be giving to your audience, and it'll make them want to share. So understand the amplification rate and really try to find the best highly amplified conversations, understand why they're being amplified, and then participate in that way going forward. The applause for your conversation. And this is really how much people like you. It will give you an even deeper understanding of what your audience really loves. A +1 on Google is an example of this. Number of favorite clicks per post on Twitter, number of likes per post on Facebook, number of +1s and likes per post on YouTube and blog. All these are applauses. They're just really concrete positive signals that allow you to dig into what people love about what you're saying and the conversations you're participating in. Economic value. The economic value of social media is kind of a tricky thing to measure. You don't want to go into social media with the sole and end purpose of tying economic metrics to it. Social media is as much about understanding what's happening in the world as it is about saying, I am going to get a 35% return on investment from my social media participating. I'm going to get a 500% return on investment. It's a longer term effort than that. And if you can participate effectively in social media, you will start to develop brand champions over time. It's very hard to measure the impact of a brand champion, but it does have an impact. You need to think both macro and micro conversions when you're looking at economic values. People just don't come to your website. They also will talk about your website offline. They might buy offline. How many people bought a car, done the research offline, and then went over to the local Honda dealership to actually transact for the purpose? The economic value is just, it's something you want to track because at the end of the day, we are in this to communicate and to help our company sell more product, but you can't just worry about the economic value. You need to worry about the bigger social media pictures. Remember, you have micro conversions and macro conversions, time on site, newsletter signups, retweets. All these can be micro and macro conversions. And then the ultimate, trying to tie a link from a social media website to actual sales on your site. A gentleman named Eric Olson has come up with a really nice social media dashboard and a company spreadsheet. And you can see right here, it's very straight ahead, very easy to see. You can find this at Avanish's website under the Best Social Media Metrics Conversation Amplification Applause Economic Value link. Say that 10 times fast. And you can also follow Eric on Twitter at ericolson.com. But as you can see, it's a very quick, easy to read snapshot that gives you a really nice handle on what's happening in social media. Now let's talk about some best practices for social media and getting it set up as an effective way of communicating with your marketplace, both within your organization and for individual. Before you actually start to participate, you want to plan what you're going to do. Don't just go in willy-nilly and try to understand it as you go forward. That's a good way to make gaffes that can come back and haunt you later. You want to go out there and find all the different social media channels you think you might be participating in and get a presence up on them. You may not be initially doing any conversational interactions, but you're going to get my site on Facebook, you're going to get a Twitter handle, you're going to get yourself listed on Yelp, on Foursquare, on Gowalla, you're going to get a company page or a person page on LinkedIn, etc., etc. As soon as you think you might want to start doing social media, go out and put a stake in the territory. Over time, you're going to understand what to do with that stake, but the first thing is you need to own it. And if you don't own it, there's a fairly good chance somebody else will eventually, and they will be using your brand, your image, to send out messages you may not have any control over. Then go out there and try to understand who's talking about what that relates to your brand, your company, your product, or your service. Those tools I mentioned earlier, Radiant 6, Lithium, are a really good place to start on Clout. Also, Social Mention, they're all a really great place to start on this. As you start to understand who's out there, in the meantime, get details on your profile, who to contact on your site. Actually put names with it. Just don't make an acme.com company page on Facebook. Make an acme.com company page with contact information and all the good stuff you would want to get that would allow people to understand you and contact you. Then listen, and I cannot overstate enough that listening is the first step to a successful social media campaign. If you don't listen, you might as well be doing a buy in a trade magazine or a buy on a website. Listening is the first and foremost thing you need to do to really participate effectively in social media work for you. It's a conversation as well. You want to talk back and forth. You want to have a dialogue over time. It's not a broadcast. You want to help build up your friends in the social media place over time. Give them props and value. Make them appear more intelligent, more connected, more wired. Every time you have an interaction, try to exchange something of value. Even if it's asking a provocative question that helps people to think. Supplying a link to a third-party website, supplying information that may not have anything to do about your company, but is of value to that conversation. This is going to help you build up trust over time that is vital to being effective on social media. Exchange your value with the influencers in your space, the creators and the collectors, and the critics. And last but not least, there will be times when you need to go out there and use your social media network to accomplish something very quick and to the point. Try to limit those. Try to have your network as a place where you can have conversations, you can share things, but you're not going to go back to the well too many times with the, oh, by the way, we have a great special this week sort of thing. I want to talk about some best practices on a day-to-day tactical basis on how to set up social media within your company. Now, Stephen Van Belgeham, who's the author of The Conversation Manager, has come up with a really great structure for this. And every time I started to try to write something on my own here, it was echoing a lot of what he says. So credit where credit is due. He has created a great structure, and it's one we follow as we do social media engagements, and I think it's something you can all work with and learn from. It has 4 parts. Build your knowledge, launch pilot projects. Don't try to go whole hog right away. Launch pilot projects and learn from them. Integrate social media into the fabric of your company. Don't keep it in a silo. And then leverage the effects of social media expertise that already exists within your company and leverage it across the entire company. You need to make social media part of your entire outbound communication platform. You just can't silo it and say it's only marketing or it's only You need to share it across the entire company. So, building social media knowledge. You want to start off with a complete audit of where social media is currently being used within your company, and you'll be surprised by some of the things you find here. You want to know who's using it, what they're saying, the channels they're participating in. You want to understand also on a company-wide basis what's the comfort and the knowledge of social media. And then you want to take a hard look and see how is your company currently perceived in social media? Is there a lot of conversations going on about your company that may not be putting it in the best light? Is your company known for 1 or 2 things that are not things you want to be known on? Or you actually have a great social media reputation in spite of yourself, with reflecting really what has been done by individuals within your company who has just kind of started off on their own dime and started to do this. And as you do this, you want to set up a social media dashboard, something that everybody within the company can understand at a glance. You'll have more detailed dashboards for the day-to-day social media participants, but you want to have something that is very easy for the rest of the company to understand and get a grasp on. Now, as you go through your audit, you're going to find social media champions within your company. They are great resources. Use them. Share their knowledge across the company. Get everybody involved. One thing with social media, and this is probably one of the hardest pills to swallow for a lot of marketers and traditional executives, is social media is not really big on the traditional command and control management structure. It's much more decentralized. Your social media champions need to be empowered to take action and start conversations on their own recognizance and not wait for a directive from on high. They need to basically be able to go out there, take advantage of these, and take the conversation to the market. Now, this doesn't mean you can't lay down a set of rules and guidelines for them and give them subjects that you want them not to even touch on, but you need to allow your social media champions to have power, responsibility, and just really go out there and hit that. Now, a lot of people, when they start doing social media within their company, start to run into things that are kind of surprising, such as the company blocks Facebook or Twitter or any of the other social media channels as a waste of time, and they can never get past the IT firewall. They're worried about bandwidth. Well, if somebody's shouting at you, you have shut the window and you can't hear them, that's really going to limit your effect. So, the first thing you need to do is have a conversation with your IT division and say, we can't ignore social media. We need to be able to access it from within the company firewall. You can't block it anymore. You want to get as many people in your company in the conversation on how you're going to engage in social media as early as possible. Surprises lead to overreaction. Specifically, your legal and regulatory staff, get them involved. Now, they're going to be conservative, and they should be. That's their job. But you need to get them involved early on and get their input, get their ideas on what is allowable and what's not allowable, and work with them. And don't take their first response at face value. Try to go through and just really work it and understand it and make them think instead of just react. And as you bring the legal and regulatory people in and your Marcom people and your customer service people, start to develop a set of guidelines and limitations that allow conversations to be natural but still stay within kind of acceptable, understandable subjects and won't go off the reservation. As you do this, develop a social media guidebook that lays out these guidelines and rules and make sure the whole company has access to it. And this is some place where if somebody wants to participate in social media, they need to agree to follow the guidebook, and you need to get them to really buy into it up front. That doesn't mean the guidebook can't be changed over time as you learn more, but you need to really have them buy into this. And it's just like when you go out on a first date with somebody who you're looking for a relationship with. There are times when you don't bring up religion, you don't bring up politics, and you're going to have a better first date. This is the same thing. There is acceptable conversation from the company standpoint, and laying that out ahead of time will allow people to not blunder and not have problems crop up that they have not planned on. Everybody who does any outward facing conversation needs to be up on social media, even if it's just as a collector or monitor. You cannot have your outward facing people be ignorant of what's being said in the marketplace. Educate your senior management and get their buy-in early, but they also need to be told that social media is not something that's going to be really fast and quick. It's a slow developing channel, and the effectiveness of it really takes place over time. And really start a good solid training program with all your outward facing staff, your sales, your marketing, customer service, and your HR people as well. I know 4 or 5 recruiters who do it for a living who have found oodles and oodles of great people to hire and bring into jobs on social media sites. And they've also have found some people at current companies who were underused, and they found some people at current companies who maybe are talking out of school. So make sure your HR people understand social media and can use it for both the good and the proactive defensive measures you need to take on a day-to-day basis in business. Now, as you get your social media up and running and people are really understanding what's going on, you want to start with some pilot projects. You don't want to go whole hog. You start in a nice measured way. You can have 2 or 3, 4 or 5, depending on the size of your team, projects going at once. But these projects are designed to gather marketing knowledge and some financial results, but you're really looking to increase the company's initial social media understanding. Set up some measured, organized listening structures using listening tools like a Radiant 6 or Lithium, and make sure the information you learn by listening to social media is shared across the company on a regular, consistent basis. So at this point, you've done your pilot projects, you have begun to really get a great understanding of the social media marketplace and how you can participate in it, how you can start to really take advantage of the conversations to learn and grow. At this point, social media and the information you've discovered with the pilot projects and you will discover on an ongoing basis are going to really start to pay off. They're going to help to break down some of the walls on the silos within your organization. Having silos within an organization can make for a much more effective organization, allow groups of people to focus on just one set of issues, products, concerns. A lot of times when you create this silo, you also create walls that kind of hurt the communications within your company. Social media allows you to break down these walls by sharing what you're learning in the marketplace across your entire company. As these walls come down, you also begin to have greater collaboration with your market and your customers in developing new products and new ways of marketing and uses for the existing products to really deliver what your market's hungry for. It's going to help you to develop a very coherent, focused content strategy for all your company's outbound communications because you're listening to your clients, your customers, your market on a day-to-day basis, and you're seeing what they're saying and you're understanding it, and you have made it part of your company's culture. You're going to start to develop some new success metrics that better reflect your marketplace. And I'm not talking social media metrics. I'm talking about success metrics that reflect social media, but that are really tied into bigger and better goals within your company. And they are going to be different for every different market, every different company, but they will be a natural outgrowth of social media. You're going to be able to leverage your company's media presence and your ability to participate in a trusted fashion in conversations to get your company's messages out there in an incredibly effective way over time. If people trust you, they are more inclined to listen to what you're saying. And if you've been listening to them and responding with information they want and need, then when you have something very specific about your company, it's going to have that much greater chance of sticking because they trust you, they understand you, they believe that you actually have value for them based on your past social media interactions. By listening to social media, you're going to be able to create a much more flexible and effective marketing program that's quick and resilient and will help you to drive your sales and grow your market because you understand your market over time. So that wraps it up for today. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact us. My name is John Thiefeld again, VP of Social Media Marketing and Search Engine Marketing for Beasley Direct Marketing. And remember, the Online Marketing Institute is your source for the best and ongoing up-to-date marketing education and information. Thank you.